All right.
Here we go.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Merge Feast. I'll go ahead and introduce all of us again. My name is Blake. I'm joined here with Logan and Brandon. Say what's up, guys.
What's up, guys?
Hello, how are you?
Welcome back, Brandon. I know last week you were too busy watching the Royals in the postseason, but
Rightfully so.
you went to the game, so it's justifiable.
Yeah, I was a little busy cheering on the Royals in the playoffs for the first time in about a decade. So sorry, my priorities shifted.
That's all good. All good. I'm just jealous. So, well, Brandon, since you weren't on the podcast last week, what did you think of last week's episode? Because that's kind of where this episode started, was the aftermath of Tribal with Lavo. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
So, yeah, I actually watched last week's episode prior to watching this week's episode. So had a full night of Survivor tonight. I really enjoyed last week's episode, specifically how the tribal council went. But before that, like, I was really mad at Rome for how he was going about the game and treating Saul. I was like, I don't know if it's against the rules for physical violence to occur in Survivor, but I feel like the way that Rome's treating Saul, it would have been justified. But Saul is a very patient man, I learned in that scenario. But more importantly, the way that tribal council went down and Genevieve, who we haven't really heard much from, like, came up with a pretty awesome plan. And like the teamwork of Genevieve and Rome, even though I'm like kind of over Rome, like it was cool to see him, like it was cool to see like a true blindside on Kashan last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I made the point last week with Logan, or I kind of had the thought that Survivor the game is kind of broken up into a couple different segments. And the first couple weeks you have kind of not first couple weeks, first couple days on the island. I feel like you're kind of all getting to know each other and it's pretty kumbaya. And then around week 3, week 4, or episode 3, episode 4, you start to get into the whole, like, I'm just annoyed about everything. And I feel like last week was when we started to see the game kind of break wide open, and especially turning into this week, I feel like there's no more, like, I don't know, a little bit of kumbaya, but everybody is playing very, very hard, and that seems more evident to me this week than even last week.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, like, I noticed this week that, like, we really kind of started to see like where everybody stands in the tribes, which goes to your point of, the lines aren't as blurred, and we're kind of past the honeymoon phase of Survivor, and now it's, time to play the game and do everything that we can to make sure that we can go as far as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hop into the first challenge, and we can talk about the challenge a little bit, but I'm want to focus a little bit more on the little twist and the reward that came from this challenge. Was there anything on the challenge that you guys liked? Because there was a little twist there with how the challenge was played. Did you like that twist, Logan, where they kind of broke it into two different teams?
I thought it was interesting. It definitely obviously added a twist to the game, but it I don't know, it was interesting in the sense of on the reward side of things and seeing the tribes being able to talk to each other and get information and seeing how all that laid out. I didn't mind it. I think it's a nice way to keep the social side of the game open to everybody in a sense. Eh, But yeah, so I thought it was a cool twist. I didn't mind it at all.
I I loved it, and I love the way that Survivor teased it because initially, when you first saw the challenge, you're like, "Oh, they're dropping down to two tribes." But the more Jeff started talking, you realize like, "Oh, they're just going to randomly divide them." And I personally think that anytime you can have um, people from different tribes have a chance to communicate with each other, like I think that is a plus every time for the game. So every journey where people from all three tribes get together, they can forge relationships. And in this instance, it's seven people, it's half of the people in the game having a chance to kind of have community together and get together and share stories and kind of see where everybody's at and maybe set themselves up for something in the future. I think that's always a plus in Survivor.
Absolutely. Well, and it seems like this group as a whole are kind of playing a little bit more based on their individual game than I've noticed the last couple seasons. Last couple seasons, I feel like you kind of had each tribe like really trying to stick together, especially looking forward to the merge. It was like, okay, it's going to be, blue tribe strong. We're going to stay together. And I'm sure there will be a little bit of that, but I haven't gotten that much of a sense of that this season. And then I feel like that may or may not be because Survivor's kind of forcing people to break away from their tribe with that social hour reward. Like, not only is it beneficial for your game to get information from other people and to start building relationships that you're going to potentially end up going to the merge with, but that also like creates distrust amongst your own tribe. And you've already seen just I almost wonder if they're going to continue to do this because you've already start to see cracks, um, because of how all of that went down. So I like it. I hope that they continue to do that in future seasons.
Yeah, I think the whole tribe dynamic of getting back and how that is unfolding is quite interesting. Some people telling the truth, some people not. On Tuku, we saw somebody like semi apologize for bringing Gabe's name up. So it is interesting to see the repercussions there and curious to see what that'll do even like after the merge when everybody is if they talk about it or start to find out more information. I think it'll be interesting to come back and look at those conversations that happened on that reward.
Yeah, I think the social hour is especially interesting because like with the journeys, it's one player from each tribe and you can come back to your tribe after that journey and lie through your teeth or you can tell the truth. At the social hour, you you likely, unless the division just goes weird and you um don't have any of your tribe mates there, you're likely going to have somebody from your tribe mate or from your tribe and um like you never know who's listening. So you have to be careful and I mean that already kind of bit Tiana in the butt. So I love it and I hope it continues.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing on that is I love that it being a social hour, it seemed like they kept it pretty much a social thing. Sounded like they only got one hot dog. There wasn't condiments. There wasn't potato salad. There wasn't much anything else. It was a hot dog and a soda. So like it was meant for like a social hour. Let's talk, hang out, rather than just eating food.
Yeah, absolutely. What'd you guys think of Tiana throwing Gabe under the bus and then how she apologized? Like, are you team Tiana right now or team Gabe?
I think I would say Team Gabe. I mean, if it's not somebody you trust, I understand going out and kind of painting them in a bad picture, but I also think being smart with who else is there, obviously, on your tribe, and not being just too straightforward, maybe throwing some things here and there, but she went all out. And then to come back, and who was it that was like, "Hey, you might want to go
It's Caroline.
apologize." Yeah, Caroline. Um, and then she goes over and half apologizes, and like
Well, she not only
he's
half apologized, but she didn't even tell the full truth
right.
on what
And so
happened.
it, she just didn't. I don't think she played that sequence of the game good at all. I think that was a complete fumble on her part.
Couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. Yeah, I definitely like Gabe a little bit more anyway, but she like fumbled that with who she was with, not thinking about who was on her in that with her. And then also the half truth and half apology. It was just weird all the way around.
It's almost like she didn't really have a good grasp of where she stood with her tribe. Like, oh,
Yeah.
Sue and Caroline are, they're in my corner on this. They're not going to care that I say that. While, like, we as the audience know full well, and I don't know really how much Tiana has picked up on that, like, Sue and Caroline are tight and Gabe and Sue are tight. So it's just one of those, like, I feel like you're in a situation and like everybody's sharing information and you also want to have something to share and it just was wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. That's a good point, especially if she thought that her and Caroline and her and Sue were, all together on that. That's a really good point.
I try to make good points every now and
Well, it is every now and then.
then.
Well, while that was all going down, we have kind of not as big of a meltdown on Rome's part back at Lavo, but still a little bit of a scramble and kind of going a little crazy. And I think he may get himself into some trouble, but it looks like the merge is next week. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out. But would obviously, I think all three of us were really annoyed at Rome last week and kind of redeemed himself a little bit. But did this take you right back to last week on just how he was not, I don't know, he just was scrambling a little bit?
Yeah, I don't think he's long for the game. Because I think I don't remember who said it tonight, and it might have been the previous episode of those kind of like mashed together in my brain, but he's just a little bit too chaotic and unpredictable to feel comfortable like having him in the long run if
Mm.
you're Lavo or anybody else that decides to work with him. So I don't know if he has much longer.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it annoyed me or kind of bugged me in the same sense as last week, because last week was just in a different, like, he was just a bully or just kind of seemed, I don't know, like he was trying to prove a point too much. And this week it was more of, yeah, scrambling, trying to get some things lined up and all when I don't think he necessarily needed to. And the way he went about it, again, I think he kind of fumbled that. Talking to Saul goes off. Genevieve talks to Saul. Our stories are not lining up here. Like, there's only three of us here. So for that to, I don't know, I just don't think he played that very well. But I don't think it painted a picture like last week for me.
Yeah, definitely does not seem to be quite the mastermind that Genevieve was last week. But once again, I was reminded of how much I like Saul and how much I like the way he's playing the game, his openness and honestness, but not, there's like little to no harshness. Um, just the way he talks to people and the way he reacts to information, even when he's disappointed by that information. I really like the way Saul is playing the game and just his demeanor.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I even said to Sydney tonight, I was like, man, I really like Saul. He's probably one of my favorite players right now, even though he hasn't had a ton of like big moves and he's kind of been what you would say on the outs. But um I think he could do really, really well post merge.
Yeah, I'm with you on Saul. That kind of was clear to me after last week's episode of
Yeah.
just I don't know if anybody else handles Rome doing what he did better than Saul did. And yeah, he's just very reserved, and I think um I just think he has a good head on his shoulders, and it could prove to be a winner's game at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Not trying to jump ahead, but he did seem to have a pretty decent arm on him when they were throwing the sandbags. I was like, okay, Saul, but
Oh yeah,
Well, and so like in a kind of a different light, Genevieve still showed that she was had a good head on her shoulders with like explaining how Rome is an asset to her game, but at some point he's going to make it such to where the scales, tip the other way. And just how she was explaining that whole situation, and he's absolutely tipping those scales, and the way she's able to articulate some of the moves and thoughts and how the game is playing, she's a sharp girl, and I'm curious to see where she lands at the merge.
yeah, I would agree with that.
For somebody who was almost non-existent the first 3 episodes, you
She's
know,
definitely been a big part of the last two.
yeah,
yeah. I actually I don't want to get too far ahead, but I think the merge might be one of the biggest free for alls we've seen in quite a while.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Just kind of to your point earlier about like people are really trying to play like what's best for their individual game. So I think that there might be some people, and Genevieve might be one of them, that is like the grass is greener over there, so I'm going to make that move. So
Hmm.
really excited for that.
And I don't know I don't know if it's maybe so different this season from last season. And I kind of made this point last week, but it seems like every tribe is actually having to play the game and build those alliances where
Oh yeah.
the tribes are split up in half, or you've got 3 and 2. And so the alliances are completely different. Where last year or last season, we had a full tribe come in, great relationships, and they just basically ran the show for a majority of the merge. And so this season just seems different. Where I don't know, I like the difference a lot.
Yeah. This is one of the better pre-merge seasons that I've seen in a while, because
Absolutely.
there's balance amongst the tribes. Everybody's having to play. Like you said, last 2 seasons, like the orange tribe, I can't remember their name, didn't go to tribal once, so didn't really have to play.
Hmm.
Reba in season 45 just again came in strong, didn't really have to play. And so yeah, you're kind of seeing just something that really has been non-existent in the new era of Survivor, and having 3 tribes that are actually having to play the game and be on their toes all the time. So refreshing change, and like I'm actually like enjoying pre-merge and not like let's just get past this and get to the
Hmm.
merge.
It's been really fun. It really
Yeah.
has.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably, I know you said one of the better ones, probably my favorite pre-merge season, at least so far.
In the new era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can.
I'd say you're probably right actually.
Well, before we talk about the immunity challenge, I'm curious to hear your guys's not best players, worst players, but whose stock went up, whose stock went down. Um, and Brandon, I'm curious whose stock went up for you this week.
Yeah, so for me, I have 2 that I wrote down for stock up, and it's Saul and Andy. So Saul, like again, this is kind of a blend of last week and this week for me, but I've just Saul's really stuck out to me in the way that he's playing the game. and the way that he's handled himself and carried himself, I think he's going to put himself into a really nice position, especially with what we know is coming up. And Andy, who has, you know, after the first episode, I was like, okay, this guy's like, I'm done with him. But I have really kind of grown to like Andy. I think, he still has, blunders here and there. He had one in the immunity challenge tonight with using the pulse all wrong. Um, but I really like his dialogue. Every confessional that he gives, he's very articulate and explains things really well. So that sticks out to me. And he was also part of the vote at tribal council and facilitating that.
I couldn't agree more. Andy was way up there for me. I every time he talks, I'm still prepared for the word vomit from the second episode, or was that the first episode?
It's the first episode, yeah.
Yeah, and like you can always kind of see a glimpse of that, but he's really turned it around. And the fact that he was able to, stick to what he said he was going to do this week and almost call his shots a little bit on, hey, I'm going to pitch myself this way. I know, how everybody thinks of me. And, know that by doing that, they're going to throw out a fake name to me. Just all these little things, be able to articulate that and then stick with it and have your two allies vote with you. Like, I thought he was definitely moved up in his stock this week. I didn't really have anybody else. Saul didn't move up any more than he did last week. He's still, he's still on the plus side by a
Yeah.
long shot, but this week didn't make him move, any higher or any lower. The other kind of three that I had were just really little ones. So I think Sam and Sierra, they seem to really solidify, you know, that alliance that they had. Sierra kind of seemed like she was toying with going the other direction, but they seem to really solidify together. So I
So
liked that.
it's it's funny you say that because I know the vote went their way tonight, but I feel like they're slipping just because I think clearly everybody on the island sees them as a pair, and I just think
Mm,
that that's bad. I think that they're going to be early targets at the merge.
I guess that's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. In my mind, kind of the stock up, stock down type thing for them. I think, or not Andy, Sam's stock went up more than Sierra's because I think Sierra wanted to go the other way, but it almost seemed like she kind of just was like, okay, and ended up going with Sam and voting that way, where that Sam wanted to keep Andy around, and I think Sam and Andy's relationship is strong enough to where if Sam and Sierra get broken up, or one of them gets voted out, or whatever the case may be, post merge, I think Sam is in a better position with having Andy because him and Andy, I think, are pretty much the closest between them. So I think Sam's stock went up a little bit more than Sierra's for me.
Yeah. No, you guys both make great points. It kind of makes me think, in a perfect world, I know we're jumping ahead to tribal for just a second, but knowing how Sam and Sierra are perceived, it almost would have made a heck of a lot more sense for Sam to say, "Hey, I'm going to play my idol on Andy, bring Sierra in, let her know what's going on, but then say, you still vote for Andy. So it looks like you and I are not together. And then I'm going to save Andy. We can blindside Annika. All the while, Sierra knows what's going on so that she can continue to play both sides and keep their relationship a little more secret."
Yeah, that would have been solid.
The other one for me, stock up, was Caroline. Not a ton, but I like how she navigated coming back from that social hour. um, in like trying to get Tiana to apologize. And I don't think it was necessarily intentional on Caroline's part, but I think by her doing that and not apologizing very well, that's that's not necessarily a bad thing for Caroline. So it was good either way for her if the tribe stayed strong together or even if not. So I think she moved up slightly for me.
Yeah. That stuck out to me as well. She clearly has a like she knows exactly what she wants to happen, and like her goal is to go into the merge with her whole tribe together, and so she's trying to keep the peace, and obviously she doesn't have full control of that, but I that stuck out to me as well. But are we
Logan, who else? Did you have anybody else for increasing their stock this week, Logan?
For me, it was my two that I was gonna kind of come in with was Sam and Andy. I think you guys hit the nail on the head with what you said on Andy and the way he's kind of playing and all. I won't necessarily repeat everything that you guys just said, but Sam and Andy were my two.
Okay. Well, who would be your stock down?
Stock down for me. I think Tiana was a big one. The way she threw Gabe under the bus and came back, told a half truth, lied to Gabe, apologized to Gabe, and it not being the full. It just didn't sit well with me. Um, and then I feel like Rome, the way he navigated the after that the reward, and he was clearly really good in a really good spot with Genevieve, and then that happened and that kind of threw some things up in the air. And so those two, because of their blunders this week, were the ones I have down.
Yeah, I had Tiana and Teeny. Tiana for the reasons that you said, Logan. Just kind of needlessly putting yourself in a bad position. Um, just just wasn't a good stretch. Wasn't a good day for Tiana after the social hour. Because uh, did um did Caroline and Sue tell Gabe the whole truth before Tiana apologized and explained what happened?
Think so.
From the way it was shown on the episode, I believe so.
So she apologized and told Gabe what happened, and Gabe had already heard the information, the full
Right.
information. So yeah, just a really bad look. And then for Teeny, I guess this again, I'm kind of blending last week and this week, but she's my winner pick. She's just kind of seems like a little wishy-washy, can't fully commit to decisions, and is also kind of a day late and a dollar short in some instances.
Yep.
And I'm just like, I'm really hoping that she will just kind of come out of uh, the lull that she's been in, because right now it's just not looking good for her.
Yeah, I'm with both of you. I actually had all three of those down. Tiana, for every single reason you guys mentioned, she didn't need to lie and apologize. She could have just apologized and then not go into what she said and who she said it to and how long she was talking to them. And there's just unnecessary information. Apologize and move on. And then um, Rome for me, I don't know. He did not really improve his game at all in a lot of areas. In most areas, he kind of made it worse. I do like him a little bit more than I did last week, but is not necessarily setting him up for success, especially going into the merge. I think people are going to see him as way too chaotic to take, like you said, Brandon. Teeny was a weird one for me because in a couple areas, I feel like she increased her stock a little bit. I think she set herself up fairly decent for the merge. Going into the merge, I don't think she has a ton of enemies. but you are right. She is kind of a day late and a dollar short to almost everything, and doesn't seem to be controlling her game, more just reacting to the game around her. And I don't think that's a way to win Survivor.
I could see her being pretty decent post merge though.
Absolutely.
I I just think post merge is gonna be wild
Hmm.
because I think there's gonna be so many people that are gonna evaluate their game and just be like, I need to get with other people, and it's gonna be chaos.
And I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. But a- as good as the season has been pre-merge, I think that's only going to elevate post-merge game. Um, let's see here. I guess let's talk about the immunity challenge and how close that was. Um, and then just everything before and after, and then we'll kind of wrap up and talk tribal. What did you think of was it Yellow Gotta bringing the three chickens and negotiating with Jeff? I was not expecting that at all.
No, and honestly, for me, I guess I understand if and everybody can't agree, not killing the chickens, eating it. I guess I can kind of understand that, but it would be really, really hard for me not to eat a chicken if it's there and we haven't eaten much. Saying that, I think in the sense of not eating the chickens and only getting a couple I think they said they got 3 eggs and two of them cracked, so they really haven't gotten much from them to try and do that. It's very smart, and I wasn't expecting it at all.
I love a good survivor negotiation. I
Hmm.
actually think that Jeff was pretty soft on this one. Like,
Hmm.
he let them walk out with 18 eggs. I
Especially
I
when second place got 6.
yeah.
Like,
I
no way.
I was shocked that they walked away with that many eggs. I thought that he was gonna be like 24 eggs. Are you crazy? I'll do 10. Like, that's what I was expecting him to say.
Yeah. I almost wonder, and I'm sure there was, but how much preparation, like, was Jeff caught off guard a little bit and was like, okay. And then they started so high, he's like, I'm not gonna go down to 8. Like, I gotta at least meet him a little ways.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
not, because that's not just not how Jeff is, but it was like, whoa,
Not as
24. How you really asked for 2 dozen
Hey,
eggs?
shoot for the stars or shoot for the wait, what's the saying? I botched it. Move on from that.
Shoot for the stars and hit the moon.
Yeah. You know, you
Uh,
guys know the saying. Um, but yeah, no, not in my opinion, not Jeff's best work from a negotiation standpoint.
No. But the irony is how the challenge ended. It was incredibly close throughout the entire, well, I'm sorry. It finished incredibly close. Gata was behind because of Andy sawing the rope with the dull side of the knife. and and then it came down to, I mean, what, 5 seconds apart, and
mhm.
it would have been flip-flopped. And so when Gata lost, they have now 18 eggs and they lost their flint and can't make fire, which is the most ironic, most survivor, like, just, yeah, that's the game kind of moment that I remember in a long time. It was awesome.
Yep. Yeah, perfect.
And the
Um,
fact that I think they said when they got back to camp, they're like, and this was the one morning that we didn't start a fire because if they would have had hot coals and would have had a chance to get it going again. But the one morning they didn't start a fire, they make the negotiation and get what they want, and then can't even do anything with it. Is yeah,
Yep. And the other funny thing that I realized after seeing the teaser for next week, now they have to share those 18 eggs with the entire merge.
yep.
I didn't even think about that.
So you lost. You got all these eggs and now everybody gets a piece of it. Like you should have just killed that dang chicken and had a really great meal pre-merge.
Yep.
Um so got it lost, and I thought it was going to be pretty cut and dry, them wanting to vote out Andy. Were you surprised that Annika came up in conversation? Because I knew Sam had said that before, but it's been so long since I've heard him talk about wanting to get her out. I was a little caught off guard there.
Yeah, I kind of forgot there was beef there. Um, but as soon as he said it, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. They were having problems earlier." And I think an old Survivor, Andy would have been a no-brainer to go home because hey, you're kind of the reason that we lost this challenge. So you're gone. And that's just not how things work in new Survivor. Hey, you messed up the challenge, but we work really well together, so I'm willing to look past that. And then, we know what happened.
Absolutely. I feel like we're seeing that more this season than I ever remember. And definitely, it seems like each season that goes on, we see that more and more. But this was like pretty much the first time this season that anybody has been like incredibly to blame and that it got talked about. There was definitely blame to be passed on previous challenges that people have lost, but it doesn't really get talked about. They talked about more of the strategic side of the game and not the physical side. And I like that.
Hey, I like that too. And with the challenge, like, this is also like the first time that it's been blatantly obvious as to why you lost a challenge.
Yeah.
Where, like, sometimes it's like, okay, we were a little slow doing this phase of the challenge, but it's like you sawed a rope with the dull side of a knife for 15 seconds before you
Yeah.
realized you were doing it. So,
Well, and even
and they
as
lost
bad
by
as
3 seconds.
right.
So,
And even as bad as Rome was last week on the puzzle, like that still could have very easily been discounted as far as like, man, it could have been bad for anybody. That was a new puzzle, super difficult, not that surprising. But sawing the rope with the dull side of the knife, like, what are you doing?
yeah, I'm just going to chalk that up to 10 days on an island.
Yeah,
But it was also Andy. So, I don't know.
for sure. Well, and like you said, making the point that they were 3 seconds away from winning. So even if it wasn't that bad of a mess up, you still can't, you're going to pick out all the little things that people messed up on when you only missed it by that little bit.
Yeah. I was kind of shocked it wasn't Andy. Like you said, I forgot that there was the beef with Annika there, and looking at the rest of the tribe, I was like, who would they vote out outside of Andy? The other four seem pretty tight, seem pretty good, and in a sense, I guess it was the three girls, and then it would have been Sam. But I was just like, who else would they vote out? And so I I was shocked, kind of shocked that it went to Annika. Just I guess the way Andy played the challenge, but yeah.
But the way they worked it up and the amount of like influence that Andy had on swaying it to Annika or to like not letting her catch wind of that, I mean, that's why his stock went up so much for me. So
Yep. I'd agree. And I mean, I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead. Like, Annika got voted out. Um,
Whoa,
one of
spoilers.
one of the biggest reactions that I've seen to a vote out in quite some time by the person being voted out.
I was actually going to ask you about that because this week was even more amplified from last week, but Kashan kind of had a similar, more subdued version of what Annika did. And I was curious, Brandon, to like you specifically, just because well, I guess now Logan's watched a ton of those episodes, but like I don't ever remember that being a thing. Like I always remember it. You got up, you might have said, "Oh, good game," or "You guys suck," as you're walking over to Jeff to get your torch snuffed. Has that? I mean, am I crazy and just not remembering those things?
So I feel like it used to be a rule where you just got up, grabbed your torch, and left and didn't say a word. I feel like it's in the last 15, 20 seasons. I know that's half of Survivor's library. That you started getting like interactions from the person being voted out and like asking questions, which I don't actually like because the person being voted out, you're now out of the game. So like you shouldn't be saying anything because if you ask somebody, was it you? And then they answer, and now, maybe nobody knew that they were part of that or they kind of orchestrated that, and then you could just blow up somebody's game. Because I think that I can't remember, but there was somebody that like revealed information. I don't remember
Yep.
what season it was, where they revealed information on their way out. They're like, so and so has an advantage. I don't remember what it was,
Hmm.
but
Yep.
just like that's not cool.
I completely agree. And while it makes for good TV, and I was kind of shocked, and uh, I just thought it was funny the way Annika reacted. I'm with you. That can potentially change the game when you are now out of the game. You're you're not even a part of the jury to where you have the right to ask questions. Like, you got to be done.
Yep.
So I don't know.
I agree, but I don't know the last time I've seen somebody cry after getting voted out, and that just goes to show that they really put on a great blindside because she did
Yeah,
not expect it whatsoever.
absolutely.
I
Well,
mean,
and
she
the
stood there
in
for what, like 15 seconds, just staring at him, like not saying anything, and then was like, "Was it you? Did you know?" She was completely blindsided.
Yeah, and in the confessional when she talked about, like, they got me before I got them, and I'm mad about it, like, it almost seemed like sadness and anger a little bit as far as why the tears were coming out, but, um, it yeah, spot on, like, brilliant blindside because she had no clue.
And I mean, honestly, you can leave with your head held high there. If they felt like they needed to blindside you, that means you're doing something right.
It's
Especially on a
true.
week where you can't vote and you don't even have your shot in the dark, and you still needed to be blindsided?
Yep.
Absolutely. Huge respect. Well, um, that was the only other thing that I had. Were you surprised that Sam didn't play his idol?
No, because Annie didn't know he had it, right?
Right.
Correct.
So I wasn't surprised that he didn't because I think he wanted to keep that relationship with Andy in a good spot and not, you know, quote unquote blindside Andy by playing that there and then having to explain to him why he didn't play it. So, he'll just go home with a souvenir, I guess.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, "What? He didn't play it?" And then I kind of like took a step back and thought, like, Andy doesn't know that he has it. If they are keeping Andy, or that's their plan at least, that makes sense on not telling him because they don't want that to blow up. And so after thinking about it, I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, I definitely wish he would have, and, like, in my scenario earlier where he would play it and then Sierra know about it but not vote for him, and then, that whole idea, but, you know, it definitely kept the relationship with Andy, and yeah, either a souvenir, or I wonder if he could use that as a fake idol for somebody.
Could. I don't see why he couldn't.
I'm not sure how that would work.
Like, if production and Jeff knew, like, okay, no, this specific one that was only good for this long. I don't know. It would be, and maybe they have rules against it. Like, you can't, if you don't use it by this, then it's not in the game at all. So you can't use it for anything else. I don't know. Be curious to find out.
That is a good question. And I would assume that that's going back into play at some point,
That's true. So I wonder
but
if they take it from him and then put it back into play.
yeah, I don't know.
Oh. All right. Do you guys you have anything else before we get to Survivor of the Week?
I do not.
I don't think so. Let's hop into it.
What are the odds we all have the same one?
Hi.
Very.
All
Logan?
right. Everybody say it on 3.
1,
1,
2,
2,
3.
3.
Andy.
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 Welcome to the show, Logan.
Well, first off, you started counting, and then Blake started counting, and counting was off, so there was no nothing that worked out great there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll fix it in the post. Don't worry.
No, we won't.
No, we won't.
Yeah.
But yeah, Andy, 100%. I mean, definitely played the best game this week. Stock moved up the most. I went from being a little just sketched out by Andy to, I could see him doing fairly well. So easily hands down for me.
I like
Yep.
it.
All right. Anything else from you guys other than plug in socials? And I know, Brandon, you wanted to talk about our email address.
Yeah, let me jump into that real quick. So, what we want to start doing is we want to try to build up a weekly mailbag. So, if anybody listening has questions about the show or has questions that they want to ask us that we can answer on the show, shoot us an email at themergefeastpodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's themergefeastpodcast@gmail.com. So, if you have any questions about the show, about our lives, just Survivor questions in general, or whatever you want to ask, shoot it our way, and it may end up on the show.
I love
I
it.
like it.
And we'll make sure to put that email address in the description of the show so you will be able to see that. But yeah, any ideas, questions, comments, love to hear from you guys. And I think that's all for me. So nothing else. Go ahead and say goodbye, Logan.
Goodbye, Logan.